My great-great-great-grandfather, James Robinson Clough, was born in Blackburn, England in 1811. In October 1825, at the age of just 14, he was charged with two separate offences on the same day, the first stealing 2 shirts and a pocket handkerchief, and the second stealing a hand axe in Blackburn. He pleaded guilty and was remanded to hard labour for 6 calendar months. He didn't learn his lesson though, and his third strike was in January 1827 at age 15, where he was charged with stealing 6 pairs of stockings. He was tried and found guilty. His sentence, transported for 7 years. He was sent to Australia, and following his release in 1836, in the years following, found his way onto whaling ships and arrived in Akaroa, New Zealand in 1837 on the American whaler the Roslyn Castle. He was almost killed in southern waters whaling when he was pulling bow oar on a whaleboat that had harpooned a sperm whale. In its agony, the whale turned and attacked the boat. Its fluke smashed the boat in two, and the midship oarsmen were killed. Clough and the other crewmen survived by clinging onto the wreckage until they were rescued. The crew took shore leave in Akaroa, and this is where he met my great-great-great-grandmother Puai, a big and powerful Māori woman, the widow of Reka, a defender against Te Rauparaha. Puai was the daughter of Chief Iwiko. Jimmy married Puai, and they had at least 5 children, including sons Abner, George and Robert. In the 1830s, whaling was the most important industry on Banks Peninsula. Hempelmann, a German, had established a whaling station at Paraki on the southern coast where Clough was a regular visitor and occasionally worked for him. One of Jimmy's claims to fame was when the French attempted to found a colony at Akaroa. Captain La Ongwa had visited in 1835 and arrived back in Littleton in 1838 to persuade the Kaitahu chiefs to sign a deed for all land between Paraki and the Akaroa heads. The only chief who refused at that time was Iwiko. However, in August 1840 he was finally persuaded. They were in final negotiations, but at the same time, son-in-law of Jimmy was helping the British establish their sovereignty there. Governor Hobson had dispatched the sloop HMS Britomart to defend the movements of any foreign ship of war that may be engaged in establishing a settlement in any part of the coast of New Zealand. The Britomart arrived in Akaroa just a couple of days before the French settlers. Clough was quickly sworn in as an interpreter for Captain Owen Stanley when the Britomart arrived and spotted him fishing with Puai and their young baby in the harbour. He helped cut a 40-foot kahikatea which was fastened with a block and halyard, and the British flag was raised. Akaroa became too crowded with British and French colonists, so he packed up his family and moved to Ikiraki, another whaling station where he became headsman. Puai died in 1844, and during this time Clough left his 2 daughters with his Māori whānau and took his 3 boys and moved to the Canterbury Plains. He was the first Pākehā to take a boat up the Avon River, taking 3 days to do so against the flow and strong winds to Riccarton. He met John Deans, who had come to settle on the plains, and he helped the Deans family establish themselves in Riccarton. By 1851 he was managing the Deans station in Homebush, south of Christchurch. His diary for the following 2 years read like a who's who of early Canterbury. He left Homebush and went to manage Cavahill's Run in Motunau for about 2 years before heading south again to Alfred Forest. He settled there and purchased a section. Living alone, he grew fruit trees and earned a small living. However, he spent most of his earnings at the local pub. When not on the drink, he was a capital worker and a good bushman and sold materials for fencing. In 1872, his house burned down and everything destroyed, including the Union Jack used in the 1840 flag-raising ceremony in Akaroa. Drinking and hard living now commenced to tell on his once iron constitution, and he suffered a paralytic stroke. He was hospitalised for 3 weeks at Christchurch and returned to Alfred Forest. In February 1874, he was found dead halfway between his home and pub with a bottle of spirits beside him. He died penniless, a man who could have had such a different outcome with his life given all of the opportunities he had been given since arriving here as an ex-convict. How did my great-great-great-grandfather go from a young convict to representative of the Queen to a penniless man?